you got emotional in the video. That's very real, and that's what makes it feel exciting and fulfilling in a way,
I mean, that's the beauty of like YouTube and social media, is that people actually just want to see you, like the very genuine you, and not this like facade, this perfect facade that we put up.
When I began making YouTube videos in the summer of 2015, almost 8 years ago at this point, which is kind of crazy, I had no idea the doors that I was opening in my life. I had this far off idea that this could be a way to connect with people around the world, and that maybe I could make a little bit of money doing it, and that could finance the trips that I wanted to take. All of that became a reality, which is a testament of the power of the internet. But what I didn't realize was that was just scratching the surface. Making these little films of mine became a form of therapy, and there was a depth of meaning to it that is difficult for me to actually describe in words. It became honestly one of the most meaningful things in my life. This became suddenly a way for me to bare my soul to the world, to practice vulnerability, and to develop the skills of storytelling. There's something spiritual almost about this, because it's an incredible way to practice facing criticism, learning to be strong on what you do believe in, right? And not letting validation and likes and admiration sweep you off path. And it's actually for these unexpected but very beautiful consequences of doing this that my life is so much richer now than it was in 2015. These were some of the things that I was thinking about as I sat down to have a conversation with my good friend, Tommy Daher, who is the lead editor and one of the core members of Yes Theory, a YouTube channel. Honestly, Yes Theory is a lot more than a YouTube channel. It's a group of guys who have really pushed the platform to its maximum, honestly, in how that can translate in a real world impact, and how it can also be a form of growth, personal growth. The idea being that saying yes to life can lead to deeper, more meaningful experiences. And, when you say yes to uncomfortable things, that's a very powerful way of growing as a person. We touched on topics like editing as a way of making sense of your life, and navigating your experiences, navigating intensity and periods of burnout. So, having said that, I hope you enjoy. I wanted to center this conversation around one video in particular that I saw you make called 2,000 kilometer road trip across Europe with Yes Fan.
Nice.
Which I love the simplicity of that title.
I didn't put much thought into the title and thumbnail for that. Yeah.
You didn't worry about it at all?
No, to me it was always about the story. I didn't really care if people saw it or not. Okay. Yeah, it was more the personal journey.
It seemed like it got a tremendous reaction. Were you happy with it?
I was really happy with it. For those who don't know what it is.
I was going to ask you, if you want to explain what the video
It was basically in 2019, I had been working for Yes Theory for 3 years, and I reached a point where I didn't really understand, or I didn't have my feeling in the videos anymore.
Right.
I was kind of just going through the motions, and I felt very burned out.
Yeah.
I hadn't really felt that way before. And so, no matter positive comments that I was reading, it never really affected me. And I feel like I react much more to negative comments than positive ones. If there's one negative versus 100 positive, I'll just think about the negative.
Yeah.
And so,
even if you're not on camera?
Yeah. Even if it's just about the video or about Yes Theory in general, I feel very attached to it. So it feels very personal in that way. But anyways, our views were going up and our engagement was going up, and I wanted to actually reach out and feel, who these people were and what was behind the screen, and interact with them on a deeper level. So I decided to just go on a 2-week Euro trip around, I think 10 or 11 different cities in Europe, and basically just show up and post on my story and be like, hey, you guys want to do a meetup? I'm in the city. And people would show up, and then I'd try to sleep at one of their houses, just crash on their couch.
Dude.
And then the next day I'd move on to the next city.
That's so cool. And I know for a fact 3 years later, because you did this 3 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. 3 years later, you're still in touch with some of the people that you met.
Yeah,
exactly. And what also makes this so impressive to me is that, to me, you strike me as, and I feel very similarly, more on the introverted side, a big group of people is a very overwhelming thing. Mm-hmm. Was a big part of this demystifying that?
I think it's like anything in life where you kind of break through a wall. Yeah. I think that's naturally how I tend to. I need a lot of alone time to recharge and then go back out. But for this, I didn't really have time to do that. Yeah. And so after I remember after the first meetup, I was crashing in the basement of one of the subscribers, and basically like I was like, how am I going to do this for 2 weeks? I'm exhausted, and I had to like get up at 6 in the morning to go to the next city. And after a few days, like I realized just how much fun it is, and how insanely motivating and impactful it was to meet all these people, and to consistently see that after I first met them, that they had each had like deeper stories and deeper meanings and like what these videos meant to them, and how they've like engaged with it and gone out and like met up with people, and how it's somehow impacted their lives, or how it's opened their mind a little bit that you can go out into the world and get what you want. Totally. So I thought that was really cool, and I did that for 2 weeks, and I was like completely rejuvenated at the end of it.
Yeah, it looked like it, man. I mean, I gotta say, I've seen a lot of your work, and it's one of my favorites, I think.
Really?
I was really...
Wow.
I think for me, it captures what I love the most about YouTube. It's a very personal journey. I like that you're unabashedly the protagonist of this, but you also include all these different characters as you go through this journey. And it just perfectly captures the joy of going on an adventure and connecting with people, But I want to back up actually to something that you mentioned. Why do you think, because this was actually the context for this trip and something I wanted to ask you about, why do you think you got detached from the connection with people? You described feeling a little bit burnt out from stuff, talking about the negative comments and whatnot. Do you think it's just too much time behind the screen? You forget that there's a real world impact, or what do you think was going on there?
Totally. I think that's totally it. I think for us, like I joined in 2016 and that was in 2019. So it's been 3 years. And for those 3 years, like we weren't making any money. Like we were just making videos and continuously trying to make this thing work. Right. So there's a lot of pressure to like constantly be working. Like we didn't do weekends for years. Right. And it's just like a constant grind. And in that way, I think like both work-wise, we all felt burned out. Like we went through a lot of burnouts during that time, especially like in 2018, 2019. But yeah, I think like when you're behind a screen, it's not the same effect as being in person with someone. Yeah. Like you can feel it over COVID. Like doing Zoom calls is not the same as like talking to someone face to face, and like feeling their emotions is way different.
What do you think that is? Like, why do you think it's so much better? Because that's one thing that I was thinking about for this podcast too. I was like, I could do Zoom conversations with people, but there's something way better about doing it in person, even though it's much more of a pain in the ass, right? It takes a lot more coordinating and whatnot. It's just better. I don't know.
Totally.
And
I think like with a Zoom call, you get like the beginning and you get the end, and you only see like this frame of people, right? And there's a delay as well. Whereas in person, like you see all the micro movements. Yeah. And I think as humans, we've evolved to like sense someone's vibe based on these things that we're not even cognizant of. You know? So it's like an entirely different ball game.
Also feels more intense, which I like. I don't say that in a bad way, but it's
like staring into your soul.
Yeah, there's more eye contact. Like during a FaceTime call, you can get up and walk out of the frame, right? And it's like normal. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I feel my brain is like less attached to what's going on. Mm-hmm. Also, I feel a greater sense of distance. I guess maybe it's because of all the, I don't know, lower resolution or something. I'm not sure what it is exactly, but
because I know that you did a few meetups as well with like in Vienna. I remember you did something like, how does that feel going from the internet to physical spaces and stuff?
Honestly, well, this inspired me to do that more often, because I think you're totally right. Like you meet these people, and at first they're like, it's hilarious, because I don't mean to say this condescendingly at all, but you meet these people and I don't know, you live in your little bubble, so like they go from being NPCs, like people living their lives to these high resolution, like very individual people with their struggles and their own unique personalities, and they're doing like Vipassana retreats, or taking these trips or whatever, doing their startups, and you're like, oh my God, there's such high resolution here, if that makes sense.
Totally.
I have not done it over the course of 2 weeks. I mean, I've done meetups where like 50 plus people will show up, and
that's overwhelming.
It's extremely overwhelming. But I think what's so cool, I don't know how you navigated this, but I don't like being the center. Like obviously everybody is there because I said like, hey, I'm going to be here. So that's the connecting point. Yeah. But I don't like being the center of everything. So when things break out into little groups and people are having their own conversations, it's so much better.
That's what I was doing during my meetups as well.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, everyone get in little groups, and I'll ask you some questions to get to know each other. I feel like a camp counselor in that way.
You kind of have to. I mean, I like that you made the initiative, to make it happen. I feel like if you don't make a conscious effort to have these sort of like group gatherings or doing events and whatnot, it's very difficult for it to happen organically outside of like university, right? Or maybe work.
Totally.
And so I really connected with that. And I find myself during particular intervals where I'm feeling very lonely. I'm like, okay, yes, I'm feeling this way. And you don't have to run from that feeling. But sometimes it is as simple as like, can I just get out there and meet some people, and do something?
I think a lot of people feel that way, you know. I think the barrier to getting out and finding someone and finding a group is not as high as we'd imagine.
Yeah. It is hard to find like a tribe, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think you're not going to get there without trying and without putting yourself out there.
Totally.
So I want to go back to something that you mentioned that was something I wanted to explore as well, which was like the intensity of the work that you guys do and how you navigate that, because I see I work in a very similar way. It's like when I get locked into a project, I throw myself completely in it. There's no, I don't half-ass stuff.
Right.
But the downside to this is that it's so all-consuming and draining. And I've seen the way you guys work as a team. All of you are oftentimes all out. Mm-hmm. How do you feel intensity has affected your creativity? Like, do you think it can be so exciting and so fun, but do you think it's also unsustainable? Is that why you felt, okay, I need to change, I need to go out and go on this trip?
I think it's like a tightrope balance in a way, where if you don't give yourself any deadlines or motivation, then you end up doing nothing. Yeah. You make one thing and it's like, okay. Yeah. Whereas if you force yourself to like keep making stuff, eventually it gets better, I think. Yeah. But I think that also leads to burnout. So there's like a fine line in the middle where it's productive but not overwhelming. And I think for a long time we were like in the overwhelming category.
How did you get out of that category?
I think we all burned out at the same time. We were like, this is crazy. And there's also at a point where yes, theory is working a bit better, and we were able to like financially at least take some time off.
Take a little bit. So was the answer as simple as we just need to program, that's French, programmer. Yeah, to like schedule out weekends or weeks off or whatever?
I think weekends, time off, and just like in general, a vibe of like, don't worry, we'll get through this, and take as much time as you need to like relax and to reset.
Do you feel any degree of your self-worth is based on the work that you do?
I definitely think so. Yeah. I think it was much more in the past than it is now.
Why do you think it's less so now?
I think as I've grown more in this, and like, I don't know, I guess it comes with like being on the platform for me like 6 years. And, I shouldn't let how a video performs or doesn't perform based how I feel about myself. I think it's a very like young person mentality to like be all in that way. I think for me, the comfort is I put my best effort into everything I do, and then whatever happens. Like I genuinely almost don't care how many views. I'm just like, we did our best. We thought it was a great idea. They did well, great. If not, whatever. And whoever watched it, like, at least got something, because it's not like we half-assed it.
So do you feel the key is just doing your best, feeling really good about the things that you're making? Yeah. That helps create some space?
Totally. I mean, how do you feel about that? Because I've seen you be affected by that.
Yeah. I think I love that mentality. I think there's a lot of factors at play. I think it does matter a lot to feel good about what you're doing, regardless of the external metrics. Mm-hmm. So if a video I make, like, quote unquote, bombs, and it's always relative, of course, right? If I feel genuinely really good about what I've done, it's interesting. Two things happen. One is like I can be happy with what I did, but it's almost like the pain is worse because I want my best work to be seen by the most people. But I've come to realize that that's often not the case, And the thing that has the most personal meaning to me, might not necessarily reach the arbitrary number of people I want it to. That says nothing of the actual impact that it has. And I've seen this actually as a trend with a lot of my favorite artists as well. You know, you see in interviews from like, you know, I don't know, yeah, Radiohead or whatever other big artists. I think their favorite work, they'll have like a favorite track or tracks in a particular album that aren't necessarily like the big hits, you know. So there's a weird disconnect, I think, sometimes between what matters to me and what matters to other people.
Totally.
Are you ever surprised by that?
I'm always surprised by how people like watch or don't watch something.
Yeah.
It seems so arbitrary as well. Like our most viewed video is the guys went to Slab City, which is like this artistic community with no laws outside of LA.
Right.
And we literally like we were supposed to post a different video that day, and then the video wasn't ready, but we had that one as a backlog.
Okay.
So we were like, oh, screw it, like I guess we'll put it up. And we put it up, and it just blew up, and we were like, what?
Immediately?
Immediately, and it just kept blowing up for like years.
Wow.
Now I think it's like close to 25 to 30 million views.
Wow.
Which is wild because it also does not really represent at all what Yes Theory is.
Right.
It's just a random side video, and like I feel like our most impactful stuff is a few layers deep.
Right.
I'm sure you probably feel similar.
Does this throw you? Yeah. I mean, so that's the thing that I guess to go back to my answer, and then I want to ask you more about this. Like, for a while I was fighting against this, and it's very destabilizing for me. It's like, wait, no, I want people to most care about the things that I care the most about, right? Mm-hmm. And in particular, I was seeing the gap between I'll spend like 1,000 hours, not 1,000. I'll spend along with my team several hundred hours working on a video for my quote unquote main channel, Nathaniel Drew, and then I'll take, I shit you not, like an hour working on a no backup plan video prior to launching this podcast, where I sit down and I just talk about something, and it'll get like, I don't know, 40 to 50% of the views. And I'm just like, what is going on here? I mean, it's literally taking 1% of the energy that it takes to do these other things. And the truth is, these complicated storylines or whatever, these visuals and animations and transitions and this curated thing, it's mainly for me. And I think I got really stuck on like, I want people to want this, you know? But I think people are coming maybe for a variety of different reasons, but oftentimes it might just be for the ideas, right? And so all of that isn't necessary, you know? It doesn't mean I have to let it go. I still really love doing that. But I think being hung up on that was making me unhappy, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you this, like if you feel, you know, we'll leave aside for a second this video's bombing or this video's doing really well. Does it bother you that some of your favorite stuff potentially, or the deeper quality stuff, doesn't reach as many people?
I think it used to bother me much more than it does now. It still does bother me, but nowhere near as much as it used to.
Just came to peace with this?
I think it's just human nature in general. That you can't predict like mob mentality. And also it's like we're dealing with a YouTube algorithm that is completely arbitrary and random. Like no matter what you do, it's some people will see it and some people won't. And it's not because they do or don't like your idea or like the video. It's just quite random. So I've come to terms with that. And I think in general it just comes back to being happy with what you made. Yeah. And if you're not, then that's the thing. It's the worst feeling is doing an idea that you think will do well and that you don't really like, and then it bombs. Yeah. And you're like, I'm not happy and this didn't do well, and now I'm just sitting here alone in my apartment.
Yeah. Does that still happen to you?
Contemplating life. No, not anymore.
Okay.
Maybe like on a lesser degree, but nowhere near as much as it used to for us.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
That's also a good sign, because I think you can get caught up doing things you think will work. Yeah. And it's a horrible reason to be making stuff.
We used to make a bunch of abandoned videos, like exploring abandoned places.
Oh, yeah.
Which is funny because Thomas is doing that right now. But,
that's hilarious.
Thomas loves abandoned places. So if it's back in like 2017, we're almost like, I'd say 70% of our videos were exploring abandoned places.
Oh, wow. Damn.
That's a lot. And so we made a conscious decision to stop doing that. And we're like, we should really focus more on the positive, message of going out and seeking discomfort. And I remember seeing all these comments for like, what happened to the abandoned videos? Like, why am I here? Like, this is not the yes theory. Like, you guys have changed.
That's hilarious.
But I think that's normal.
So on that point though, like, how do you go about, I actually have, this keeps sparking more questions for me. Before I even ask that, do you feel like there's any merit or any use, I guess, in studying the algorithms or studying what's working and whatnot? Because I do see you guys, you have a system. Yes, there definitely has a system for like pitching and voting for ideas, right? So it's a collaborative effort and whatnot. You guys are always trying to go for the best ideas. But I think all of you guys also do a lot of scanning for like what's going on in the landscape, right? To figure out what works or what people are doing. Do you find that helpful for you in your creative process, or is it just a curiosity on what people are making? Like, is it strategic?
Like watching other people's content.
Yeah, scanning what's out there.
I think for me, not necessarily. I think I just watch things out of interest, and then like I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. That could be a cool video, and then I pitch it. I think Thomas much more does that. Maybe I think he comes up with like a majority of the ideas as well. So I think he's constantly thinking about that. For me, I'm more relaxed.
Okay.
I kind of forget your question. Wait, what was it again?
Just how strategic it is, like your consumption of social media, considering you work in social media. That's another way of wording it.
Yeah. Honestly, I think it used to be much more than it is now. I think in now a lot of regards I've kind of calmed down in terms of that.
Yeah.
But I think there's a big difference in when you like think of ideas. There's a lot of things that are fun to do and things that are fun to watch. And I think it's like always been part of the DNA of Yes Theory is like trying to find the overlap of fun to do and fun to watch. Because one or the other is just never going to work either for you or for the audience.
Totally.
For what people want to see and what you want to do.
Yeah.
So I think the more ideas you pitch, the more likely you'll find like the Venn diagram of like the middle
Yeah.
of fun to do and fun to watch.
Totally. There's an interesting dynamic there where it seems like whenever I've tried to do stuff that I think more people will want to watch as the express motivation, right, for doing that, it doesn't work because energetically I feel like I distance myself from that core desire of like making or expressing certain things. And then when I go off and take these risks and just do my own thing, and it's really aligned with this joy for capturing and sharing things, people end up showing up, like it's a little bit counterintuitive because you think, I mean, everybody says just, do what you love, follow your passions and whatnot. Right. But you see like YouTube today, and as just an example of so many different industries, it's so strategic and so planned out and whatnot. And I feel that can kind of squash the creativity out of you. Totally. I've had to force myself to stop at times and be like, whoa, I don't like this feeling of approaching it too much like a business. It was always a therapeutic thing for me, a place to self-express. I need to orient towards that. And to go back to what we were talking about earlier, honestly, that's the thing that helps me the most on handling numbers or feedback or whatever. It's reminding myself what the hell I was doing this for in the first place.
And what was that?
I think it's always been about this desire to tell stories or to get better at telling stories. There's a real joy in capturing and sharing things that feel very human to me. And yeah, there's a thrill in it. And I think, that you got emotional in the video, during that road trip. That's very real, and that's what makes it feel, I don't know, exciting and fulfilling in a way, yeah, that's always been my favorite facet of YouTube, honestly. I know it's great for tutorials and how to do stuff, but
yeah,
I've always been for me, it's been a great way to, I guess, connect with what it means to be human, if that makes sense. That's part of my theory on art in general, Yeah. But so to go back to something we were touching on, what do you do when you feel you guys are deviating? Like, okay, this is too many haunted videos. Is it just a feeling that you guys are like, okay, we need to course correct? Is it a discussion? How do you get back on track?
I think it's evolved over the years, definitely. I mean, we've also evolved over the 7 years that we've been on YouTube.
Yeah.
For me, 6. But I think it's like
It's a long time.
it is a long time. It's kind of weird to say it out loud. It's like, wait a second, I'm 19.
Yeah.
And now I'm 26.
It's like pretty much your whole adult life.
Basically so far. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it depends on circumstances that are happening around us. Like Darren, who is one of the 4 founders in Beginning, left. And then Matt's gone as well to write the book, and Amar is like stepped away to make the film. So all these different factors also like make us rethink the structure and make us rethink, okay, like who's doing this now and what do we actually want to be doing? I think like over the past year or two, Thomas has really wanted to go explore countries. And that was something that was never a part of Yes Theory in the beginning. Like that was just like going out on the street and talking to strangers and making new friends and stuff like that, but never going to new countries.
And you've taken a bit of a lead on the Seek Discomfort side of things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think it's the Seek Discomfort channel is fun just because it's, to me and to us, a bit more relaxed. So it's, you can almost like dive a bit deeper into fun to do as opposed to fun to watch. But I also think in that way, like people enjoy watching someone who's passionate about something.
Dude, I've heard a lot of people say they borderline prefer watching Seek Discomfort over the main Yes.
You hear that?
And I've gotten the same thing with my second channel. No backup plan was this space to just do whatever the hell I wanted. And people pick up on that. They pick up on that energetically, and it's more fun. Mm-hmm. Isn't it so funny? I mean, I think it's hilarious the ways that we can overthink shit and overcomplicate a thing that's working. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm having to fight myself not to make this too produced, because then it kills the ability to have an honest conversation with a friend, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of like YouTube and social media, is that people actually just want to see you, like the very genuine you, and not this like facade, this perfect facade that we put up. Not that we do that within Yes Theory, but it's definitely like a more elevated concepts. Yeah. That like you can spend less time like shooting the shit and talking with your friends and joking around as opposed to like going on these adventures. Yeah. And that's what the Seek channel is for us. It's just like a place to just hang out a bit more, which has been really fun to do. We went to Ireland this year, and that was hilarious. Yeah.
Do you have a specific vision for what you want it to be, or you're just following a feeling really with that channel and the things that you create?
I think right now it's quite loose. It's almost like a little too loose.
So, okay. And what does loose mean? Just following a feeling?
It's just everyone's like, I want to do this. And you're like, cool.
Okay.
A bit more of that. But I think...
What does a little too loose mean in terms of like, why is that a problem for you guys?
I think in terms of like consistency, and also in terms of...
You want some?
Sure, actually. Wait 1 sec.
Yeah. Flat water and sparkling.
Don't mix.
Do you actually prefer flat over sparkling?
No, sparkling. I just came back from breakdance, so I just want a lot of water.
Gotcha. Okay.
I've been breakdancing.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was I saying?
Just why things feel a little too loose right now.
Yeah. I mean, this is more of a discussion that we haven't really had yet, but maybe by the time this ever airs, it will. Yeah. But we just have a lot of people inputting ideas, and the channel doesn't really seem to have like any sort of consistency, which I guess is maybe the beauty of it. But we feel like even when we put like more effort and time into thinking of ideas that would genuinely excite us, as opposed to like just putting anything onto the Seek Discomfort channel, it does better. So it's more just thinking things through as opposed to just throwing things on there. Yeah. We just don't really have the process for it yet, because it was kind of started as like a fun thing. I mean, it still is a fun thing, and it will be a fun thing.
Isn't that amazing how big something that starts just as a fun thing can become? I mean, you guys are like, how many subscribers as of right now?
We're like at a bit over 750,000.
Dude, that's insane.
Which is hilarious, because like 6 years ago, that was like Yes Theory, and that was a huge deal. And now we're like,
it is a huge deal, man.
We're treating it like,
yeah,
you know. And it's fine to put that into perspective.
I mean, it matters and it doesn't matter, right? Like, it's cool because it's a metric that people are plugged in, and that's super cool from like a community point of view. Mm-hmm. But then, I guess subscribers doesn't really matter. I mean, some of my favorite channels are much smaller from a numerical standpoint, but I'm so plugged in, and I just love following along. Mm-hmm. So
I also think that like maybe the bigger you get, the more pressure it is to like try to be normal and try to be yourself within it. And I feel like PewDiePie, for example, like at a certain point, like hated everything he was doing when he was huge, and now is like he makes like 3 to 5 videos a week,
right?
And they still get millions of views, and he's just doing whatever he wants, and he's like genuinely happy.
Yeah.
So I think that would almost be the goal, is like not caring about the numbers, doing what genuinely makes you happy, and in almost like paradox, it gets you like sustainability.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's become harder to be relatable as things have grown and been more successful, and you guys are not like these struggling kids anymore, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's a very successful business. You're living this cool life, traveling the world and whatnot. Do you feel like that's been a challenge ever? Has that crossed your mind?
Not really. I think in terms of like I think the positive thing about us is none of us are bad people or like have big egos, and maybe I'm biased for saying that.
Yeah. According to you,
we're pretty fucking cool. No, I think genuinely like we all care deeply about what we do, and we're all genuinely good people. And I think that speaks volumes for like maintaining our genuineness in a way. I think the lack of relatability comes from the scale of the ideas, like going to Nepal and like hanging out with these honey hunters, or
right?
Going across the world. That stuff I totally understand is less relatable. But I think like...
And do you worry about that? Do you see that as an issue at all?
Not for now. I think for now, like for Yes Theory, it's a cool way of expanding, I guess, people's minds and seeing different cultures and how they can also interact with it. But I think that's like almost what the Seek channel is for, is to keep nurturing that. Like we're just normal dudes.
Yeah. Even
if this is a successful thing.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I mean, you've seen Thomas joke and...
Yeah, totally.
Speak nonsense.
Totally. I think people can get like a little bit disoriented by the numbers, but...
I mean, it's also easier for us because there's a number of us, right?
Yeah, it's a group,
we're
right?
in it together. Right. I don't know how it is for you being alone.
I think it's been interesting, the trajectory, because the truth is like, yeah, I'm not the same person, or I'm not in the same circumstances, I should say, that I was a few years ago. Like I'm not even going to pretend to be the young, like 20, 21-year-old, really desperately trying to make this work and following a dream. Cause it did work out, like, and I got so lucky with the incredible support I got online. And now here I am, like we're talking in my apartment in Paris, and it's like my whole life has been changed because of this. So I guess in some ways I can't be relatable in the way that I used to, but I still try extremely hard to maintain as much transparency and like honesty on all the things that I'm going through in my life as I ever did, whether that's my dating life, or how much money I make or whatever. I'm always trying to push myself to be open. I guess that was the thinking behind doing this podcast as well. It's a chance to go into more depth and have these conversations, right?
But I also think like you're not 21 years old anymore.
No.
Like you've grown up, right?
Yeah.
And it would be disingenuous if you tried to put on this facade that you're still this young, desperate, hungry guy. Like the same thing for us. Like we're not a bunch of dudes living in the same house anymore.
Yeah.
We're almost
people get attached to how things were, right?
Yeah. It's like
I miss the old Yes Theory.
But
that ended, right?
I miss Darren. Where's Matt's backflip? Did you ever watch that video?
Which one?
Matt tried to do a backflip.
This isn't the one where you guys are jumping. He jumped with Amar in Switzerland.
No.
You guys you've done a lot of jumping over the years.
Yeah, we've been jumping left and right. Matt made a backflip, like trying to learn how to backflip in a certain amount of time video a few years ago. And he didn't exactly get it. He got close. So we're like, all right, we'll make a part 2. But then it never sort of happened. Yeah. So like half our comments were like, for a while, they're like, where is the part 2 of Matt's backflip?
Is it called part 1?
No.
That would be really funny though, for it to just still be called part 1.
Yeah. And then that's why I want the last video on Yes Theory, like in like 100 years to just be, not 100 years, I guess like 50, to be Matt just doing a backflip.
Yeah, it's honestly definitely not too late to do this. Like you could have him do that in even 10 years, and that would be hilarious.
Just like a 10-second video of Matt backflipping. Be like, and now we're done.
Yeah, exactly.
That was all we had to give.
Yeah. For me, I make a lot of metaphors, I guess, between video editing, and life, you know?
In general, or?
For me, editing is like a way to make sense of life. It's a way to look at life, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Do you feel the same way? Is it like how do you feel about video editing? Because I wonder if this is just me or if other editors feel the same way.
No, I definitely feel that too. That's kind of what got me into editing in the first place. I started editing when I was like 13, 12 or 13. And it basically came from an inability to express myself otherwise. And wow. I kind of like would film my friends or make my own little vlogs or make my own little, creative projects. And I also felt that I could be like more funny in it. And that's like when I first started editing for Yes Theory, I'd put in a lot of references and put in a lot of humor into the videos and roast the guys and kind of make it more interactive in that way. And I think for me, that was like half my dialogue is a reference to a movie or a TV show or something. Mm-hmm. And it's always like, if people get it or they don't get it, but I was like finally able to express my humor in that way. And that felt really like a huge relief. Like in high school, I was known as like the video guy to make the projects for the videos, and we just have fun with it and make them funny too.
So your identity actually developed quite a bit around this.
Totally. Yeah. And I think, I don't know, it's just like it's almost like a safe space for me to fully express myself without being what I thought would be judged. But I think now I'm much more open in real life than I used to be. I used to be much more shy, like within myself. But video editing definitely helped me on the path to like just being more expressive and being more open, talking to people and stuff.
Dude, wow. Why do you think it helps you make sense of things, or express yourself, I guess, as you put it, in a way that you couldn't otherwise? Is it just the increased amount of time to like go through all the material that you have, or getting to pick the order that things are shown? What do you think it is? It's kind of an abstract question.
No, it's a funny question. I think video editing is you're really able to convey an emotion. And I think in a way, like besides music or like photos, I feel like video kind of encapsulates a lot of different arts and makes them into one. And I feel the ultimate form of at least expression for me. And I've just been impacted by a lot of movies that have really touched me over the years, and ones that I keep watching over and over again because they give me a lot of hope. Like I watched the end of Shawshank Redemption.
Okay.
I watched the end of 127 Hours hundreds of times.
That one's hard to watch, man. I loved 127 Hours.
Not the cutting the arm off, but when he like makes out of the desert and spoiler, but he lives.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like that's an okay spoiler to give considering it's based on a true story, right. So you have to
end.
But
yeah, for example, my Eurotrip video, I just wanted to convey the feeling of A, adventure, and B, just gratefulness and appreciating that we can all go out there and try to find this sense of community wherever we are.
What was that like editing a story that took place years prior?
Well, I tried to edit it for years.
Oh.
But I just had a really hard time editing myself being that vulnerable.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, the first version of it, I was not really in it that much. And I showed it to Amar and Bryce, our editor who worked for us. And they're like, you need to be more prominent in this. Yeah. Otherwise, there's no person to follow through this. And I didn't really feel that comfortable with it because to me, it was never about me. It was about like going out there and doing these meetups so these people could like meet each other. And also for me to kind of see it and interact with it. But I never wanted to be like a protagonist in that way. So that was like a huge discomfort that I overcame, like editing that. Even like showing myself crying was obviously extremely uncomfortable. But I think that also helps me like realize that nothing bad's going to happen if that happens, right? People are going to probably relate to it more. And
I mean, dude, I think that's why I connected with it so much. It's like, I'm so glad you were the protagonist because you were kind of like as an audience member, our window into the experience. And I think if you weren't there so much,
it would feel a little bit more disconnected, right? Like, whose journey are we following along here, and why is this happening exactly?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but I like picked out all the songs and the vibe, and I knew how I wanted it to go, and it was to finally finish. It was a huge relief. I was like, there.
Yeah.
It's over now.
Yeah.
After 3 years.
Do you find it difficult to edit something that's happened years in the past, or what did the time, the space and time to reflect on the whole thing make it easier in a way?
I think it was always in the back of my mind, and in that way it became more of a burden because I was like, if I'm not working, I could at least work on this Euro trip video and get it done. So in that way, it was just a lot to think about. I wasn't so much like turned off by editing something that was so far in the past, but more just if people even cared after 3 years of it happening anymore, since it was so long ago, and B, just putting it out there.
Yeah. There were people in the comments that went to the meetups.
Yeah.
You saw that, right?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
really sweet.
Yeah, I think it's so incredible that that you're able to use this skill that you learned as you said 12-year-old,
Yeah. Yeah.
and here you are, more than that amount of time afterwards. So that means more than half of your life you've been editing.
Yeah.
And it's this thing that it's a skill that you can use to share yourself
That's
with the
pretty
world.
wild.
I think that's awesome, bro.
When did you start filming and editing?
I was a little bit, there's no late actually. I don't want to say late, early, but I was interested in cameras, but I never really held one or worked with one until I was like 17. And that's when I learned to start chopping up video. You know, I was like, I need to learn editing because I need to learn how to make videos. And I didn't even realize how much of an art form it could be. You know, I was just like, you know, movies are really cool, and it's not hard to say that filmmaking is an art form, right? But editing is like the invisible stuff that makes it all possible.
Totally.
You know, and in many ways you kind of want it to be invisible so that the experience is immersive. And there was something amazing about that to me, because you have so much power as the editor to control and craft an experience for people. And there's a real joy in that, you know?
Totally. I don't think people realize how much power there is in editing. Like, you can completely change a story.
Yeah.
That's what's cool about it.
Do you have any advice for people interested in learning to edit video, but are maybe overwhelmed with that, you know, or don't know where to start?
For me, what got me into video editing was just watching movies that I loved, and watched them over and over again, and kind of realizing how the music impacted me at certain points and how it like fits cuts, and just kind of, I guess, first watching movies and trying to dissect how they're portraying emotions, like how they're conveying this feeling. And then just going out and, you know, even with an iPhone or phone, filming something and seeing what you can make with it. I learned all of my editing just through YouTube tutorials. So like, the first thing I'd write is like, how to cut, how to blade, all that stuff like is just...
And all that information's available out there, you know?
It's so available, which is crazy. And it's only gotten better over the years. Like, there used to be like these blurry videos of people like not really hitting the point of what you wanted to learn.
There's still a lot of stuff to sift through,
Yeah.
you know, but the information is out there.
Yeah, which is cool. I mean, how did you learn how to video edit?
It's very similar. But I think also a lot of trial and error. I think you grow as an editor by being forced to tell stories and find a way to overcome the challenge of, I want to convey this thing in this way. How do I do it? You know, and it feels like no matter how many times you do it, every story presents its own challenge, right? Which is kind of what makes it so engaging. Because I think if I was doing the same thing over and over again,
yeah, exactly.
I'd go crazy. The thing I love most about video editing actually is that it's a way to make sense of life. And since life continues to evolve, and I find myself in these new situations, new dynamics with new people, and having to figure out how I feel about it, it feels like this art form that's always there for me at all times. You know, as long as I'm documenting and capturing things, I can pull these things together and be like, how do I feel about what happened this year or this month or whatever?
Totally.
So
Seems like it's a cathartic reflection.
Yeah. I mean, for me, YouTube was always a therapeutic thing, you know?
That's cool. I didn't know
And
that.
for us to be here, like doing this right now is so crazy. Because I remember thinking to myself, like, man, if I could get 100,000 subscribers, like that sounded impossible, you know? But there is something powerful, I think, in telling personal stories. And it's the reason why I wanted to center this conversation around that video, because, yeah, I don't know. It seems in some ways that if you're willing to open yourself up, the whole world opens up to you, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you like that one. It's definitely one of my favorites as well.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for having
Happy to
this
hear.
chat with me. And good luck with everything. I hope
too.
to do this again with you soon.
Definitely. We should do like catch-ups.
Yeah.
Just through this.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, exactly.
That was a conversation with Tommy Daher from Yes Theory. Consider checking out the links in the description to see his work as well as support this podcast. Thank you for listening.